The following is a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
Drivers, start your engines. Pull those belts down tight one more time, warm up those tires, hit your marks, and let's go racing, boys and girls. Nascar, Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, and NHRA Racing Talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here is your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
Well, the gang is all here, sort of. Matt is actually out of town, but he is going to join us from his location in the Charlotte, North Carolina area as we get to talk about plenty of things here on this particular weekend show. Two, not just one, two potential new Formula One tracks. We got new leadership over at Formula E. I don't know. They were on a pretty good rise under the old one. We'll have to see if the new guy is any good. Indy 500 testing is off to a fast start. We'll tell you exactly how fast. Meantime, we got two IndyCar drivers. Don't have any contract for 2024, and they're talking about it. Penalties are being handed down in the Truck Series. Could a NASCAR Series go all streaming under the new television rights deal? More Ross Chastain fallout. Guess you probably figured that was going to happen. Plus, we got a whole lot more on this weekend's edition of the Championship Racing Network, which will get the green light right after this.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
We are indeed back. I'm Steve West. Matt Nicholson live from the Charlotte, North Carolina area. Producer John in studio. Matt, how are you? Is everything okay up there?
Oh, yeah, everything's good. Just getting woke up this morning. The drive was quite long last night. Got into some weather issues and traffic issues, but
Sure.
we did make it.
I was going to have a little fun with the fact that you're so close to North Wilkesboro but can't go, and how bad that must feel.
Yeah, if they return back next year, that's definitely priority one. Let's just say that.
Yeah, it's that's something that's definitely on the bucket list, no doubt about it. Before we get into
later tonight.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I think later tonight, when everything gets settled down, I think we're going to venture up to Hickory because they're running a weekly show up there.
Oh, there you go.
So
Take
a shot at it.
Before we get into the meat and bones of things, yesterday, we don't normally talk about people who pass away from outside the sport of football, but when you talk about a guy by the name of Jim Brown, it's hard not to talk about him. I mean, you think about it, in 9 years, the man set all kinds of NFL records by the time he retired. I mean, the man was selected to 8 Pro Bowls in 9 years. He was the leading rusher 8 of 9 years. He was a multiple-time MVP. He was a career, won the league MVP award in 1965, and everything that he did afterward. And, to think that Art Modell is one of those guys who is considered to be a good but yet a bad owner. I mean, he kept the Cleveland Browns going through a long time, but he was also the guy that uprooted them and turned them into the Baltimore Ravens. Not exactly what most people would consider to be a player's owner necessarily. He was really in it for himself. This guy actually caused Jim Brown, from all stories that we heard, to retire because Jim was filming the movie The Dirty Dozen and told the Browns, hey, I'm going to be a little bit late, but I'm going to be there. I'm planning on being there for my year. Art Modell told him, yeah, I'm going to fine you $100 a day for every day that you miss camp. So he just looked at him and said, okay, I quit. I retire. Congratulations. You just killed the goose that laid your golden egg.
What a story that is.
I know. I mean, to do that with the guy who is easily, if not the best, certainly one of the top 5 running backs in the history of the NFL, and a lot of people consider to be the greatest player in the history of the National Football League, and he passed away yesterday at the age of 87. I have said this on numerous occasions. If I were to pick an all-time team in the National Football League, Jim Brown would be my lead running back.
Same here.
So, sad to say that he is gone, but we get to the information that we are here for, and that, of course, is all about racing. Let's quickly take a look back at last week. They were at Darlington last week, where we weren't, where the Xfinity Series raced on Saturday. Exciting finish. Came down to a battle between the Moonlighter, Kyle Larson, and John Hunter Nemechek. It's kind of a typical Darlington final lap, too. Larson had to recover from a speeding penalty on his last pit stop, was able to scream through the field to make it a race on that final lap. The two touched coming off of turn 2, touched again going into turn 3, which caused both of them to slide up, touch the wall there. Darlington stripe, after all. But Larson was out front. Nemechek attempted a crossover move while Larson overdrove it. Larson ends up bouncing off the wall off turn 4, caused him to bounce into Joe Nemechek. Nemechek was spinning towards the inside wall. Larson claims the win. Nemechek slides across the finish line backwards. Justin Allgaier was able to take advantage. He got second, followed by Cole Custer, Austin Hill, then Nemechek officially 5th. Carson Hocevar 6th, trailed by Josh Berry, Sam Mayer, Kaz Growlett, Corey Heim inside the top 10. The thing that I noted after the fact is that you could tell that there was frustration on the part of John Hunter Nemechek because he felt like he might have had the chance to win, but he did not seem to be, I guess I should put this way, he did not seem to be mad in any way, shape, or form at Kyle Larson for what had happened. He understood this was racing at Darlington.
He really wasn't. It's like the old saying goes, when the flag's in the air, all bets are off.
Absolutely.
When it's in the air, all bets are off. You don't have a teammate. You don't have a friend. You're going for the flag. You're going for the trophy. You're going for the check. That was by definition to me, that was a classic Darlington finish.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
Hard racing, leaning on each other.
Leaning on the wall.
That's what the track produces. Yeah, leaning on the wall. But that was and people was on social media slamming and bashing Kyle Larson afterwards, trying to say he ran dirty.
No, he didn't.
No, drop it. give it up, drop it, you know.
You could easily say that both of those guys were driving those cars to 105 to 110% of their actual capabilities. I mean, both of them were doing that. And that's just flat out, that's hard racing.
I would even say as far as 150%.
Yeah. I mean, they were overextending their cars. It showed. Kyle Larson bouncing off the wall coming off of turn 4. And that just happened to be where John Hunter Nemechek was. It was just wrong place at the wrong time for John Hunter. Otherwise, yeah, he might have very well claimed that win.
Sure. I don't disagree at all.
So anyway, with the Moonlighter winning, no playoff spot got locked in. So the standings show that the ones who are locked in are Austin Hill, who's got 3 wins. 2 wins for John Hunter Nemechek. And your single-time winners are Chandler Smith, Sammy Smith, and Jeb Burton. So what you got is 5 people that are in because of wins. Those that are in on points right now: Cole Custer, who does seem to be coming to life, Justin Allgaier, Josh Berry, Sheldon Creed, Riley Herbst, who had he has admitted this. Darlington is not his best race, so we'll have to see if he can bounce back. Sam Mayer, Daniel Hemrick. Hemrick in there just inside, and he's got a fairly sizable 33-point lead over Parker Kligerman for that final playoff position. So we're starting to get a little bit of separation there as to who's going to be in and who's going to be out. It'll just be interesting to see as we go on through, because we still got a couple of road courses as kind of quasi-wild cards between now and when they lock in the playoff situation. But I think right now we're kind of, unless somebody just happens to jump up there and surprise, we're kind of in the position where we kind of know who the guys are going to be that are going to the playoffs.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's starting to solidify itself clearer and clearer, in my opinion.
Yeah, when you got 33-point lead over the last one into the playoffs and the first one out, you're starting to get separation there, and that's big. Sunday was led by the NTT IndyCar Series. They began their month in Indianapolis with the Grand Prix of Indianapolis on the road course, GMR Grand Prix specifically. Between speed and a little bit of strategy, the winner of the race had actually begun in third. It was 2021 Series champion Alex Palou. Palou had a car that just kind of seemed to rocket off any time that he wanted it to, and with proper pit strategy, he got an overwhelming 16-plus second margin of victory at the end over Pato O'Ward. Alexander Rossi was your final podium sitter. He was third. Pole sitter Christian Lundgaard there with a career-best fourth-place result. We'll talk about that a little bit later on during IndyCar News as well. Felix Rosenquist, Scott Dixon, Joseph Newgarden, Marcus Ericsson, Colton Herta, Graham Rahal, we'll talk more about him coming up in a bit as well, in the top 10. And with the win, Alex Palou takes over the points lead at 174 points to Pato O'Ward's 168 in second. Marcus Ericsson third with 155. Romain Grosjean up there in fourth, 134, with Scott McLaughlin at 133. Rest of your top 10, Joseph Newgarden sixth, trailed by Scott Dixon. Will Power, Christian Lundgaard, and Kyle Kirkwood just inside the top 10 with 108 points. Your rookie chase looks like this. Marcus Armstrong leads the way with 77 points to Augustin Canapino's 56, and Stingray Robb with 42. Still the best name in all of racing in my mind right now. And the engine manufacturer battle is led by Honda, 413 points to Chevrolet's 387. And that's when the Cup Series went over to Darlington, wrapping up a pretty limited schedule last weekend. Biggest story? Latest dust-up between Ross Chastain and, this time, Kyle Larson. We'll get back to it during the news. Chastain and Larson, though, seem to be connected to each other this year, kind of like Chastain was with Denny Hamlin last year. When Chastain tried to squeeze Larson going into turn 3 late in the race, Larson didn't back off. He said, I'm holding my ground. Chastain ended up sideways and stuck across the front bumper of Larson's car, and, well, it gave away the win that both of them were fighting for. The beneficiary was Larson's teammate, William Byron. Byron claimed lead with 6 laps to go, but then had to hold off a very determined Kevin Harvick in an overtime restart to get the win. Chase Elliott claims third, followed by Brad Keselowski, Bubba Wallace with a good run, Harrison Burton in there with one of his better runs that I've seen in a while. Kyle Busch, Justin Haley up there with the top 10. Ryan Blaney, Chris Buescher was 10th. Kyle Larson was officially credited with 20th, while Ross Chastain got a 29th place finish. This weekend's racing actually begins later today, if you can believe it. Craftsman Truck Series heralds NASCAR's official return to North Wilkesboro Speedway. They're going to run the Tyson 250 on Fox, the main network, NMRN, beginning 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 12:30 p.m. Central Time later today as we air live. Sunday's racing was supposed to start with Formula One, running the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix at Imola in Italy. And then Mother Nature said, I don't think so.
Not so fast.
Exactly. Caused massive flooding, washing the race away. It will not be rescheduled. Not that Red Bull Racing needed the benefit by any stretch of the imagination, but now with one less race, that just further cements the idea that Red Bull is going to be your champion. It's just going to be a battle between the two drivers to figure out who's going to be the title winner, in my mind. I think we already figured, though, probably it's going to be Max Verstappen. It seems like anytime he really has a desire to get by it, he can get by his teammate.
Yep.
Let's see here. What's the rest? All the rest of the action going to be on Fox Sports 1. That starts with the Pro Stock Car Call-Out. That's for the NHRA. That'll be on Fox Sports 1, 4 p.m. Eastern, I should say, 3 p.m. Central Time. Then they turn their attention over to NASCAR with the All-Star Open. They're going to get the Cup Series back at North Wilkesboro, North Carolina, for the first time since 1996. This will air on Fox Sports 1 and MRN Radio. Starts 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central Time. The All-Star Race itself will hit next on Fox Sports 1 and MRN Radio, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central Time. Truthfully, why in the world they're putting I don't get it. They've had the All-Star Race on Fox Sports 1 now for, I don't know, ever since Fox really kind of got Fox Sports 1, ever since they got from the Speed Channel. They've been putting it over there. But why you would put, number one, the All-Star Race, and number two, the All-Star Race is bringing you back to North Wilkesboro for the first time since 1996, when you could put this in prime time on Sunday night. Why aren't you?
That's a really good question. But just taking a look here at the Fox projected programming for tomorrow night. 4 p.m. Well, let's just start at 2 p.m.
Okay, sure.
You've got PBA bowling with the Super Slam Cup Finals.
Yeah, because, watching people do bowling as opposed to, going really fast down the track.
Bowling.
And then at 4 p.m., you have USFL with New Jersey facing off against Houston.
Okay.
All right.
I'm going to give them this. We all know this. Football's king in this country. We know that.
Yep.
I was fearful it was going to be golf.
But, gentlemen, at the 7 and 7:30 p.m. and even 8 p.m. time slots, respectively, you have The Simpsons.
Okay.
7:30, you have Bob's Burgers.
Mm-hmm.
And then at 8 p.m., you have The Simpsons again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, I like The Simpsons as much as the next guy, but could have waited a week. Just saying. After the All-Star Race is over, the NHRA returns. It'll be either at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central Time, or whenever the coverage of the All-Star Race comes to an end. They are going to air delayed coverage of the finals of the Gerber Collision and Glass NHRA Route 66 Nationals presented by Peak Performance. Thank you for the longest title in the history of racing, NHRA. It's at the Route 66 Raceway near Chicago, Illinois, again on Fox Sports 1. IndyCar, Formula E, and as we noted, forced by weather, Formula 1, all are off this weekend. I guess we could go ahead and take a break, but I want to go ahead and kind of tease this now because we talked about it. You and I talked about it, John, beforehand and kind of described it just a couple of days ago in the fact that this is the latest run-in for Ross Chastain. This is one of those situations where Ross Chastain is a very, very talented driver, but this is causing problems. And it's causing bigger problems than what most people would like to probably admit. And now, all of a sudden, Justin Marks, his team owner, is admitting it. This is becoming a problem.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
So we'll get full into the details of it coming up here in just a moment, and we'll have some pictures to prove it. In fact, to John's somewhat astonishment, we've got 11 pictures for you this week. We'll start the first one next.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. 2 tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
It's funny feeling this may end up being something of a fairly long conversation between myself and Matt, just saying. Because this is one of those deals where we've been talking about this. I've been kind of seeing this coming, that sooner or later there was going to be, we'll just call it a come to Jesus moment. Let's give you the details. Trackhouse Racing team owner Justin Marks took some time to have a heart-to-heart with his talented but somewhat bull in the China shop driver Ross Chastain this week. If you look on our CRN Live YouTube feed, the picture that you're going to see is courtesy of Fox Sports. This is a still taken from the race coverage itself that shows what we were talking about, that this is in the aftermath. This is after Ross Chastain was pulling a squeeze up on Kyle Larson, and Kyle Larson didn't give an inch. Not that he should have. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that Larson was in the wrong. I'm not even trying to say that Chastain was in the wrong. But they were trying a racing move, and Larson wasn't going to give anything, and it ended up with that one car sitting across the front bumper, effectively, of the 5 car, and it cost both a chance at the win. Justin Marks, after, I guess you want to say after the fallout, immediately following the race, there was a lot of fallout. Monday, there was a lot of fallout. Tuesday, Justin Marks, Trackhouse team owner, goes on SiriusXM NASCAR satellite radio and says this, quote, Ross drove a great race. He made good decisions in the first and second stages in not racing guys super hard, letting a couple of people go, just kind of managing that give and take and everything. And then it all kind of fell apart at the end. If Ross clears Kyle and makes that pass and wins Throwback Weekend at Darlington 7 days after getting into a scuffle on pit road, talking about the deal with Noah Gragson, the guy is a legend. Marks added, quote, he's got the skill to do that. He's got the ability to do that. The result was just bad. It was just bad for everybody. It was bad for Hendrick. It was bad for Chevrolet. We'll get back to that. It was bad for Trackhouse, and it was bad for Ross as the points leader. We'll get back into the rest of that right now, but Matt, I want to bring you in on this because I don't think you and I disagree in any way, shape, or form in that Justin Marks is correct. He's got the skill, he's got the ability, but he doesn't seem to have the patience, or where am I off base might be the better way to ask that question.
I'm not going to say you're off base. Okay. You're not off base with that. But I'll start by asking this. What is, and even John, even this to John too.
Okay.
When I know my answer to it. I'm trying to word it in a way to where you understand what I'm saying.
Okay.
Whether it's being one of the three of us, if we make a move, not just on a racetrack, but in anything, if we do something and the result is not to what we expect it to be, what is that called?
I would call it a mistake.
It's called a miscalculation.
Okay, that's another good way to put it.
Ross miscalculated this move.
I would agree with that.
He miscalculated the move. I have miscalculated moves on a racetrack, not in similar fashion, but I've miscalculated moves to which caused contact in an inadvertent manner.
Okay.
All right. If you look back at the restart before, it was the restart before where you flipped two said front row cars. Larson's on the bottom, Ross is up top. Kyle pulled this same exact move on the restart before.
Sure.
Almost identical to a T. Kyle calculated his move correctly. Ross miscalculated his move. All right.
And I'm going to ask this question. I think I know the answer, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. How much of this might be actually be able to be placed on the shoulders of the spotter by saying you're not clear?
It's 50-50.
Okay.
My opinion is 50-50.
All right.
Because at the same time, you got the spotter in your ear. He's everybody's got different terminology. We use the base terminology that everybody uses here. Door, bumper, clear. When you're at the door, that means you got the nose of the car at the door, bumper, Same said position, clear, is self-explanatory.
And
all right.
at that point in time, you're free to move wherever you want, right?
Free to move wherever, high, low, middle, depending on which track you're at.
You name it.
All right.
Okay.
Brandon McReynolds is Ross's spotter.
Not
That's
an
50%
unaccomplished guy when it comes to being able to do this kind of stuff.
Correct. I'm going to say that's really 50% Brandon, 50% Ross.
Okay.
Because the part where Ross comes in at is Ross fully admitted he went full send into turn one. And the way these new Cup cars are, there's a couple of videos I went back and listened to with throttle trace. I'm going to use the term throttle tracing to listen to where the throttle points were. There were several guys that could drive into turn one, barely breathe the throttle to let the car take a set, and then they're on the floor with it.
Okay.
You're not supposed to be able to drive wide open through Darlington in turn 1 and 2.
Not supposed to. That's true.
Trucks were the same way Friday night. Okay? Now, the way these cars are so aerodynamically dependent now, when he went into turn one and the car, he floored it, car got tight. He was beside Kyle. The air was pulled off of Kyle's car, was pulling Ross up, really. He got tight. You got your result. That's what happened. My opinion, that's racing. You're going to miscalculate moves from time to time.
Sure.
It's going to happen. You're not going to be perfect in every move. You're not going to be just whatever, hunky-dory, happy-go-lucky, and it's like, oh, see you later, bye. Poof.
All right.
John gets to my door, I'm gonna race John.
Well, sure.
Now, if I miscalculate a move, I will fully admit, hey, that's on me. I miscalculated that. My fault.
So let's say that this is an incident that happens between two elder statesmen who have a whole heck of a lot of respect here, and I'll take even Kyle Larson out of this. I'll take Ross Chastain's name and Kyle Larson's name out, and let's put in, say, Denny Hamlin and Brad Keselowski. And you can put either one on the inside and the other one on the outside. It really doesn't matter. But let's just say, for the sake of argument, it's the 11 on the bottom where Chastain was, and it's the 6 where Kyle Larson was on the outside. And Denny Hamlin comes up and pinches and ends up across the nose of Brad Keselowski. Is this as big of a deal or not? And the reason I say that is because we have a track record now where if there is an incident involving Ross Chastain, most people will automatically jump to the conclusion that it has to be Ross Chastain being that bull in a china shop.
And first party, what you said, if it's 2 other drivers or even 1 other driver in the same scenario,
if it's not the one car, in other words?
If it's not the one car, there's not a word said.
Okay.
There's not going to be a word said.
Ross Chastain has built up this reputation over the last, we'll say it's season and a half at the very least. And now that he's the one that's involved in this, this has become a much bigger deal than maybe what it should be.
It really has. Because I've, let's just say I've been preparing my sermon all week long for this. I said this on social media the other night, and I really didn't care. And my first words that I said was, I may get drugged for this. I may try to get canceled for it. I really don't care. Ross gets paid to drive.
Sure.
He doesn't get paid to ride.
That's true.
All right. If I'm going to put myself in the one car. If Justin Marks is paying me a multi-million-dollar salary every year to go drive that number 1 Chevrolet, whether it be on the side of it, Worldwide Express, Tootsie's Orchid Lounge, Kubota Tractors, Moose Lodge, whatever, whoever I'm representing, I'm not going to go out there and be paid to go, and I've got my spotter mayor, all right, okay, we got West in the 24 car coming up on my outside, let him go. No. I'm going to go out there and you get up beside me in that car, I'm going to race you to your limits.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to find your limits. I'm going Pete Mitchell and Top Gun 2 here. My job is to find your limits and test your limits and see what you got.
Okay.
And if you beat me, I'm gonna be all right. You got me.
At that point in time, you tip your hat and go, hey, you were the better person on this day.
Exactly. I'm going to regather myself. I'm going to back up, and I'm going to try to get you, whether it be 5 laps later, 10 laps later, or heck, even the next lap. Whatever it may be. Whatever track you're at.
Sure.
He gets paid to race. He does not get paid to drive. In today's age of where, and this is the part where motorsports in general has gotten so bad. I'm going to say there's probably 3 drivers, 3, out of the entire field of Cup, Xfinity, and Truck put together that could legitimately survive racing in the style era that was the late 80s to mid 90s. There are 3.
I would agree with that.
They would not survive. They could not make it. Guys like Dale Earnhardt, Darrell Waltrip, Ernie Irvan, Tony Stewart, Rusty Wallace, for example.
Mm-hmm.
If they was guys today was racing in that era with those people, they would look at them and laugh and go, grow up. We're racing.
Stop being prima donnas.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bingo, bingo, bingo. Stop being prima donnas. Stop going, oh, he's racing me too hard. You're getting paid millions of dollars to drive a 3,400-pound race car around a racetrack and race.
I think I can come up with 2 of them. And I'll guess at the third, and I'll see whether or not you agree with it. The 2 that you're thinking are Chastain and Kyle Busch.
All right, I'm going to say 4 because that are 2 of them.
Okay. There's a part of me that would like to say Larson might be able to hold his own on that.
I'd say Kyle Larson will be able to hold his own easily.
Okay. That 4th one ought to be an interesting one then, because I had those 3 in mind. I'm trying to think of a 4th right offhand.
Kyle Busch would survive. Kyle Larson would survive. Ross Chastain would make it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to dip all the way down to the Truck Series.
Okay.
Johnny Sauter would be the 4th one.
I could see that. I can see where you're going.
Yeah.
I can see where you're going with that.
Johnny Sauter would be the 4th one.
Okay.
There's not anybody than Xfinity right now. I'm going to give maybe one in Xfinity that would make it, and that's Austin Hill.
Interesting.
Other than that, I do not see anybody, even Denny Hamlin, Brad Keselowski,
Chase Elliott.
That's a question mark.
Because he learned at the feet of his dad, let's face it.
He did. He learned at the feet of his dad, no doubt about that. And
but he does seem to be something of a child of his day. In other words, he seems to be a child of this kind of racing as opposed to the kind of racing his dad was used to.
Very, very true. And here's a reason why I did not include Kevin Harvick. Because one day to the next, you don't know which Kevin Harvick you're going to get.
I can agree with that.
You don't know if you're going to get the... Let's see here. You don't know if you're going to get the laid-back, I just want to finish the race Kevin Harvick, or if strap the bulldozer blade in front of the car, I'm going to the front Kevin Harvick.
Yeah, the guy that we saw, for example, this weekend when he breaks back out that number 29 look, are we going to get that guy who came out in his 3rd race and beat Jeff Gordon at Atlanta, or are we going to get the guy who's just riding it out? And I want to see the guy on a much more consistent basis. And truth be told, I know that Tony Stewart and Gene Haas want to see the guy who earned the nickname the closer much more than what they have over the last couple of years.
Agreed.
Could you think it's his age factoring in?
Is
Personally,
that a
no.
factor? Maybe a small one, but it's not an overwhelming factor, no.
Agreed.
All right, well, let's continue on with this because Rick Hendrick, he's been keeping his mouth shut for the most part on this. Rick Hendrick is one of those guys, when he speaks, you know he's got something to say because he doesn't talk a whole lot. And Rick Hendrick, after this run-in with his driver, got to talking. And this is where that situation with Chevrolet, the car maker, comes in as well. Because when you start breaking that in, I mean, a few years ago, when Kyle Busch was winning everything in the Truck Series, one of Kyle Busch's own sponsors said, hey, listen, you're keeping us from being able to do anything because you're taking all of the spotlight away from one of our own drivers. This may be another situation. We'll talk about it next.
Right back with more on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey folks, this is Jordan.
Fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back in, live from the Charlotte, North Carolina area. Matt is joining us there. Steve West, producer John in studio. And going back to last Sunday evening after the whole situation at Darlington, Rick Hendrick got up and started talking to media. He admitted Ross Chastain's very, very talented, but said doesn't have to be that aggressive. And it's going to be real difficult for him to be able to claim a title when he's picking up so many enemies along the way. But then he added this eye-opening statement when he said that it didn't matter that Chastain drove a Chevrolet because if he takes out another Hendrick car, also a Chevrolet, Chastain's going to get it right back. And Hendrick said he told Chevrolet exactly that. Marks noted the relationship with both Chevrolet and Hendrick as well. He said on Tuesday, quote, "The fact of the matter is, a huge part of what Trackhouse is able to do on the racetrack is fundamentally not only our relationship with Chevrolet, but with our key partner teams at Richard Childress Racing and Hendrick. We all work together to try and make the Chevys go fast. So when you look on the racetrack and you see the speed Trackhouse has, that's not 100% Trackhouse speed. We can't own that speed 100% because a lot of that speed comes out of a working relationship with RCR and with Hendrick. And we're all communicating and putting data and information and ideas on the table together." I'm going to get to Chastain and his comments after the fact here because he said a fantastic understatement, maybe candidate for understatement of the year. But when you start noting the relationship with Chevrolet, how much trouble is one in?
I'm going to back up to this point. All right. If Cliff Daniels keeps his mouth shut talking about, well, thanks Chevrolet, that's 3 Chevrolets he's wrecked in a row in a week, I don't think a word is said.
Okay.
Because it was like Cliff Daniels went into, I guess you could say, crybaby mode, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
The reason I think that nothing gets said because, let me think of a recent example here. Well, let's just say this in general. If you've got 2 of the Toyotas, they get into it and they wreck each other. Mm-hmm. Do you hear Toyota talking about, oh, you got to do this or you got to do that? No. Do you hear it with Ford? I haven't.
Okay.
If you have, let's just say if you have an RFK car that tangles up with a Stewart-Haas car.
Right.
I haven't heard it.
Okay.
I think if like I said, if Cliff Daniels doesn't say anything, I don't think we have this problem.
And if Ross Chastain hasn't built up a reputation that he has over the last at least year and a half, I don't think we're hearing anywhere near the amount on this that we are now.
Yeah, I could say that, but the aggressive style that Ross has and how he races, that's where he's built up that reputation. And back to what I said the last segment,
right?
He races with that aggressive reputation that a lot of those guys race with in the late 80s to all the way up into the mid 90s. That era of drivers, most people today would not survive.
Is there, and I guess there may be a way to put this that might be a little better. I'm not saying take away. You certainly don't want to tone down the aggressiveness of Ross Chastain. It is that aggressiveness that has him running up at the front, challenging for wins constantly. And yeah, it can get him into trouble from time to time. So you don't want to take that off. Maybe you just want to refine and kind of smooth off some of the rough edges there, just a hair, to where what Justin Marks was talking about, where he raced everybody clean in the first 2 segments, maybe he stays that way through segment 3.
I'll go to this saying that you hear Clint Boyer say almost on a weekly basis on a Fox broadcast.
Okay.
All right, boys, the pay window's open.
Mm-hmm.
Stage 3, pay window's open.
Everything is on the table.
Everything's on the table.
I got you.
That goes back to, hey, running hard but running clean, stage 1, stage 2.
Right.
Stage 3, when the pay window's open, you've got a job to do. Go get it. I'm not saying bulldoze everybody. No. I'm absolutely under no circumstances am I saying that.
Okay.
You can race aggressively clean. He's proven that.
Okay.
People in the past, I'm gonna say from 2000 to current day, people in the past have proven time and time again you can race aggressively clean.
Sure.
Tony Stewart, Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin. I'm going to throw out there the drivers like Kenny Wallace. He would race you aggressive, but he would race you clean.
Right.
And the king of racing you aggressive, but he would race you clean at the same time too, Dale Earnhardt.
Oh, yeah.
Terry Labonte. Ken Schrader. Ricky Craven. Kurt Busch. Guys of like that right there would race you aggressive, but they would race you clean. Now, they would lean on you a little bit, but they wouldn't be doing it just to be like, hey, all right, bam, coming through. They're not doing that. They lean on you. You're supposed to lean on each other when you're racing, but you're not. You have to calculate that move. Darlington, as I said earlier, that was a miscalculation. Straight miscalculation.
Okay.
All right. Now, whether it, you clean an edge up here, clean an edge up there. Honestly, within the next 2 weeks, I honestly would not be surprised if Ross goes out and absolutely wipes the floor with one of these next 2 races and dominates it. I wouldn't be surprised. Just to where it's one of those moments he gets out of the car and he goes like, and you may be one of those, let's just say, Will Power at New Hampshire moves when he's looking at the tower and he turns the birdies loose out of the cage.
Sure.
One of those moments. But
Chastain even has to admit he's got a very white-hot spotlight on him right now. Whether all of the backlash on this is deserved or not, he's got a white-hot spotlight on him right now because of what has been going on in these little run-ins, whether it's Noah Gragson or Kyle Larson or Denny Hamlin or whoever it is. And he got to talking about it this week. He got very blunt about the talk, his actions, where he had Denny Hamlin all over him last year, 2023, with Noah Gragson, now Kyle Larson, and seemingly Rick Hendrick all upset and or calling him out. And he simply said this, quote, "I just need to hit less things. It's as simple as that." I mean, yeah, okay. I see where you're coming from. He then thought for a moment and added this, quote, "Together with everything else that's happened, I deserve every bit of heat and every bit of bad word that comes my way and every bit of ill will that people are thinking about me." It's funny that he says that because there are a few drivers to me that feed on something like that. Okay? And those drivers include a lot of the ones that you just mentioned, and I'll throw Kyle Busch in there as well. Kyle Busch gets out of the car, and whether it's the Truck Series or the Xfinity Series or the Cup Series, if he gets out of the car and he hears more boos than cheers, he feeds on that. That feeds him to make him want to go out and do it more. That last statement, quote, "Together with everything else that's happened, I deserve every bit of heat, every bit of bad word that comes my way, and every bit of ill will that people are thinking about me." To me, that feeds him to go out and prove that everybody else wrong.
I could agree with that. And back to what I said just a few moments ago. I wouldn't be surprised within the next week or 2, maybe 3, if he goes out and just wipes the absolute floor with everyone and dominates one of these next events.
I think I'd like to see it myself.
I would love to see it.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm a Ross Chastain fan. I'll tell you that right now. And the thing that cemented it for me was him having the guts to do what he did at Martinsville last year. To pull that Hail Melon move just cemented the fact that I'm a Ross Chastain fan. And I have been, in the past, I have said this on the air many times. I've been a Tony Stewart fan. I've been a Darrell Waltrip fan. These are guys who, let's face it, were a little rough around the edges from time to time. They
Agreed.
were not exactly the most popular guy, whether you were talking about in the stands or in the garage. But everybody also respected those guys. They respect Ross Chastain because they understand the talent that Ross Chastain has, but he doesn't necessarily have to be the most popular guy out there. I'm really getting to the point where I like Ross Chastain because I see a lot of the drivers that I liked from 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago in Ross Chastain.
Personally, I think he's a combination. He's a combination of these drivers. He's a combination of Dale Earnhardt. I'm going to say he's a combination of Tony Stewart, Terry Labonte, Darrell Waltrip, and Tim Richmond, all balled into one.
Okay.
there's a lot of different qualities that each one of them have. That if you bought them all together, you get Ross Chastain. The way he is on the track, how he carries himself, how he has an aggressive mentality, and you could go on for the next 30 minutes of putting qualities together to ball up into getting Ross Chastain.
We could.
You really could.
But we don't have the time.
Yeah. True.
All right. All right. So enough about Chastain. I think all three of us are in a position. I should say this. I know that Matt and I are in this position. I'm not going to speak for John. I like Chastain. I'm going to start rooting for him more and more. I'll be real honest with you. Would I like to see him maybe have a few less dents in the car or cause fewer dents in other cars? Maybe a little bit, but you know what? Keep the aggressive nature. I like it.
I want to pull in YouTube here for a little bit.
Here we go.
By the way, if you're not viewing us on YouTube, you're missing out a lot. Just go to YouTube, CRN Live, subscribe.
Absolutely.
You'll know when we're live.
There you go.
But James made an interesting point about Mr. Ross Chastain.
All right.
That's not his actual name. His actual name is Ross Crashtain.
Crashtain. Yeah. Well, there may be room for that. Let's talk about some other things here real quick. Let's see. 2311 Racing, not 23 by 1. And driver Tyler Reddick are fined 10 points for pre-qualifying ballast infraction at Darlington. So let me repeat that. This is a pre-qualifying ballast infraction that inspectors found at Darlington. Exactly what was wrong with said ballast wasn't revealed. NASCAR only cited Rule 14.11.2.1, subsection A, subsection Z, footnote B2. I don't know, whatever. That particular rule cites, quote, any and all ballast added to the vehicle must be secured inside a ballast container or containers. Additional ballast containers will be permitted to be added to the chassis. Okay. What's wrong, NASCAR? After noting the infraction, NASCAR did eject crew chief Billy Scott for the weekend. The point deduction dropped Reddick 24 points behind Martin Truex Jr. in the points. The picture you see on CRN Live is courtesy of FrenchStretch.com. I was just showing the car. I wasn't showing ballast because, again, the situation with the 45 car, as you saw it right there, that was the look that they ran last weekend at Darlington. We don't know what was wrong with the ballast. All we know is that there was something wrong with the ballast, but NASCAR only cited the rule. They didn't say, here was what was happening and what was wrong and why we're docking him the points.
Hey, Matt, for a non racing person like myself, what is up with this ballast stuff? What is all that?
Ballast is, I'm going to use ballast into terms for the old school terminology. Ballast is nothing but like lead and weight for the car, before the car makes weight. All right. Ballast is made up of a different compound where.
Usually I've heard it's either tungsten or lead, though.
It's mostly tungsten.
Yeah.
Lead, because if lead gets hot to a point, and it's got to be blazing hot, but if it gets hot to a point, it can melt out and shift and cause a whole bunch of problems.
Yeah, it's got a much lower melting point than tungsten does.
Yeah, way much lower. So they use tungsten instead, and with this one right here, if they're citing that rule with must be secured inside of a container, that tells me it was improperly mounted and mounted in a place to where it wasn't considered in a safe manner. Because if any ballast comes out or loose of a car, we all three have seen what can and will happen.
Oh, yeah. We've seen it punch through a front bumper and punch a radiator out.
I've seen it hit a windshield and nearly cave in a Lexan windshield.
That's true, too.
So I can see that, and, you got to have that weight stuff attached right, because hitting stuff like that on the racetrack's not fun.
Yeah, no doubt. One other note here before we go to break here, and that's that all-star fan vote. And we've said this before. It's going to get in one driver, otherwise not eligible into the all-star race this weekend. Voting set to continue on to Sunday morning. NASCAR, as they did for the top 10 vote getters, released a list just a couple of days ago of the top 5 vote getters. They did this actually yesterday as we go to air live on Saturday. In alphabetical order, the top 5 vote getters are A.J. Allmendinger, Eric Almirola, Noah Gragson, Corey LaJoie, and Ryan Preece. Corey LaJoie is that one guy who I think is honestly a bit of an underdog when it comes to this, but you kind of want to see him get in there because Corey LaJoie really has kind of set himself up as one of those guys who is a fan favorite, if not necessarily a favorite to go out and win every week.
I would agree. But my opinion is probably via the vote, it's probably going to be somebody like Gregson or Priest.
Okay.
Well, no, I'm not going to say Priest. I'm going to say Gregson because out of this group, I could legitimately see LaJoie and Priest racing their way in.
I could see that as well. I honestly, though, I think A.J. Allmendinger has also proven himself to be a highly popular guy, so I think he might be one of the top 2 or 3 vote getters as well. Remember, Open coming up, you're going to get a driver who wins the first Open. You're going to get a driver going in automatically winning the second Open, and then they'll figure out the vote winner. That'll be the guys who transfer.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. Four tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome back into the show. Hour number 2 underway. Steve West and producer John in studio. Matt is joining us live from North Carolina, where he is set to help. Are you in North Carolina technically, or are you in South Carolina? I know you're in the Charlotte area. I'm just not sure which side of the border you're on.
It's in the Charlotte metro area on the south side.
On the south side, okay. You're helping out some family this weekend, as it turns out, so hopefully everything goes smoothly there. Let's take a look at another picture here, because the first 2 times that the Project 91 entry from Trackhouse Racing hit the track late last year and earlier this year were with former F1 driver Kimi Räikkönen behind the wheel. That'll change for the 3rd time that car hits the track. This time around, they're going to put on the streets of Chicago race 3-time Australian Supercars title winner Shane Van Gisbergen in the car. Van Gisbergen won his first title back in 2016. He's now the two-time defending champion of the series. Took over that top spot when Scott McLaughlin left for IndyCar. Trackhouse team owner Justin Marks, who seems to be dominating the show so far, said, quote, if you talk with anyone in Australia, New Zealand, and that part of the world, they're going to tell you he's one of the most talented drivers on the planet. He's used to street racing in heavy cars, and I think everyone's going to be impressed with his performance. The crew chief on the 91 going to be, again, Darian Grubb. Grubb helped Tony Stewart to the 2011 Cup Series title. That car you can see as it will race at Chicago on YouTube on CRN Live, courtesy of jski.com. It's going to be interesting to see how he handles it because Kimi Räikkönen's there. Jordan Taylor, we talked about him. We'll talk about him again coming up in a moment. They got a little surprised when they got to Circuit of the Americas and realized just exactly how hard these guys were going after each other and all the beating and banging that was going on at a road or, in this case, a street course. It'll be interesting to see how Van Gisbergen handles that.
It will be. And I think now what this absolutely does, to I guess you could say Mr. Plow's delight, one of our avid listeners and avid viewers.
Sure.
I think this opens the door for Scott McLaughlin to run.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I mean, that would be, I think that would be one of the things that Justin Marks dearly wanted when he started this Project 91 entry, is that not only is he looking for drivers from other series around the world, he'd love to get an opportunity to get an IndyCar driver or 12 to be able to get in this car at any particular point in time.
Yeah, I mean, and now that he's got that Project 91 car with Van Gisbergen coming in, pending how the IndyCar schedule shapes up and how it lines up,
I can see it happening.
I mean, I could see Team Penske, hey, Scotty Mac, here you go.
There you go.
I could see it happen.
Let's see. If you watched Fox Sports 1's coverage of the Darlington race last weekend, you actually saw several drivers come in and join coverage from the booth. This weekend, it'll be a big-time throwback for Fox as NASCAR welcomes one of the winningest drivers of North Carolina, one Darrell Waltrip, old DW, coming back to help on the race call again, rejoining Mike Joy and joining Clint Boyer. DW, of course, worked for Fox from 2001 to 2019, but filled in for Bristol Dirt Race in 2022 as well. The first time they ran that there, the pic you see on courtesy of Fox Sports. The fact that Darrell Waltrip's coming back, one of the winningest drivers, as I said, at North Wilkesboro. You want to talk about a guy who knows this track like the back of his hand, it's going to be Darrell. I mean, Clint Boyer never raced at North Wilkesboro, to the best of my knowledge. Mike Joy has called races at North Wilkesboro, but obviously never raced there. To be able to pull that kind of a knowledge, and the fact that he's willing to do it after he is retired, good on DW. I like it.
Yeah, it would be better if it was on the main Fox network, but hey, I'm not calling the shots for Fox, but I think this is going to make the broadcast that even much more bigger because of his knowledge of the track, how well he's done there, and it's just going to add that much more to it instead of being just.
He's going to see things. He's going to see things out of this car and what those drivers are doing when things happen on that track, and he's going to know exactly what's going on. Clint Boyer could probably figure it out, but DW's going to know it just like that because he's been there.
Absolutely.
If you've been a fan of NASCAR for a couple of decades, you might remember when Rusty Wallace drove the two-car but had a version of it known as Midnight. We're going to show you a version because, well, quite frankly, I like Pontiac kids. Ask your parents. A 1992 Pontiac Grand Prix that Wallace drove for the first time at Richmond Raceway, highlighting the title sponsor of the race, Miller Genuine Draft. Parked that ride in Victory Lane that day. He raced it 5 more times in 1992. That car claimed 3 top 5 finishes and a top 10 as well. So 4 top 10s in 5 races plus a win. They brought the same car back in 1993, still a monster. That paint scheme that you're seeing right now on CRN Live on YouTube, courtesy of ESPN, ran 15 races, finished second at Richmond, and then swept April. Races at Bristol, North Wilkesboro, and Martinsville. Claimed another 5 wins in the final 9 starts of the year, 8 total wins in 1993 for that car alone. Now, from 1993 to 1994, Penske changed from Pontiac to Ford. The bodywork changed, but the chassis didn't. The car kept winning. 13 wins in 3 years with 30 top 5 finishes in all. Wallace said of that car, quote, Mr. Penske gave that car to me. That was one of my most popular cars. It was a roller, but it had and now has an engine again. Rusty's set to break that car out. He's going to help pace the field to green at Worldwide Tech Raceway at Gateway when the Cup Series heads there later on this season. Again, the Pontiac version was what we showed there. I don't know whether it's going to be the Pontiac or the Ford version that's going to show up at Worldwide Tech Raceway at Gateway. I'm personally hoping it's the Pontiac.
It's the Ford version.
I hate that. Sorry,
yeah, I've
sorry, Ford people, but I'm a Pontiac guy. I've been a Pontiac guy since I was a kid.
Well, you know what I hate?
I saw it.
I hate the only place I can get MGD is on YouTube Live, CRN. That's what I hate.
Yeah, I saw something on social media that recently, and it is the Ford version.
Darn. Sorry, Rusty, but darn. Let's see, to our Xfinity Series coverage where a driver who filled in for the injured Chase Elliott at Coda in the number 9 Cup Series entry, Jordan Taylor. He's set to return to NASCAR, this time going to run for Cowlick Racing in the Xfinity Series. This will be in their third star car, that part-time ride now, the 10 car, which has already seen drivers like Kyle Busch, Austin Dillon, Kyle Larson drive, among others. Taylor's going to get in the car when the series heads to Portland. Taylor's one of those guys, we just talked about it. He got a little bit surprised when I don't think he was expecting things to be quite as bump and beat and bang as they were at Coda. It might be less, it might be more at Portland when it comes to the Xfinity Series. Either way, he's had his eye open. Now that he's got his eyes opened as to the way things go, does that change the way that Jordan Taylor attacks this particular race with Cowlick Racing?
I think he's going to be able to go in a little bit more relaxed, personally. Because with the people that will be running the road course event for Xfinity, and I'm going to use a handful here, Connor Mozak, that'll drive for Sam Hunt. Mm-hmm. I'm going to even throw Kaz Gralla in there because Kaz Gralla is not a bad road racer.
Sure.
You've got Jordan Taylor, as we just said. I could see Andy Lally stepping in somebody's car. Which one? I don't know.
Could see that too.
With about that many right there, and you're stepping into I would argue, the predominant Xfinity road race program over the last couple of years. Granted,
I could easily say that, yeah.
Granted, it's been AJ Allmendinger, and he's hands down the best road racer within the top 3 series in the sport right now.
Let's face it, he's not going to be that far away when it comes to being able to, you need any kind of advice about how to set up a car for a road course. If he's not at Portland, you call him.
Yeah. I'm gonna take the old Bic lead pencil, start clicking lead out, and I'm gonna pencil the 10 car into one slot.
I like where you're going with that. Congratulations out to this couple that you're about to see on CRN Live. The picture courtesy of jski.com on YouTube. Chandler Smith and his wife Kenzie, they announced at Darlington they are expecting their second child due this November. They already have a son, Chandler Jr. He was born just last August. This one will also be a boy, they say. Again, congratulations out to them. Hopefully everything goes well. And then there's this. And I kind of know that at some point in time, I mean, heck, I talked about this earlier this week at my other job, and the fact that television, radio, movie, or cinema, they all adapt to changing times. But streaming has become such a big thing now in the television world that with the exclusive rights window now closed when it comes to NASCAR's rights negotiations with both Fox and NBC, things are wide open. There's one possibility, according to a report from Sports Business Journal. This regards the Xfinity Series only. So now we're talking about, we already had a separate deal between Cup and Xfinity, which split their years between Fox and NBC from the last deal. And then there was a separate deal, or a second separate deal, if you want to say that, for what is now the Craftsman Truck Series, where all of their races showed up on Fox or Fox Sports 1, as opposed to being split between Fox Sports and NBC Sports. Now we might see a situation where we get a Cup Series deal, an Xfinity Series deal, and a Truck Series deal. Because according to Sports Business Journal, the Xfinity Series might move off of television entirely and go exclusively to streaming. The report says that there are at least 2 companies talking to NASCAR about just Xfinity Series coverage, and Amazon's considered to be the leader in that. SBJ reports that there is another possibility, the potential revival of a midseason package, kind of similar to that 6-race package that TNT used to have up until about the 2014 season. Right now, nothing is confirmed. The publication does report that, but they do add that they do expect to get word on handshake deals when it comes to the new television rights package for NASCAR and whoever it's going to be, somewhere on or before July 4th. But to take one of the entire top stock car series and move it entirely to streaming, I'm not sure how I feel about that. I mean, I've got a couple of streaming services myself, but I'm kind of at my limit of where I want to be when it comes to the number of streaming services that I have. I'm not so certain that I'm necessarily going to go jumping just because NASCAR puts one or more series on a streaming service. If I don't already have it, I can't guarantee that that's enough to push me over to go get it.
Yeah, I don't like the aspects of this move, not from simply because of you're cutting off all of your ability to view it at no cost.
Right.
It's an aspect of where you're at the possibility of one, killing all of your viewership of people that do watch the Xfinity series on a weekend basis. 1, 2, it could hurt the much lower teams.
Agreed.
From an exposure standpoint. So I'm up in the air on this one.
Yeah.
Very much up in the air.
I'll admit, times are changing, and we'll have to see how things go. Time will tell.
They are.
Yep. Craftsman Truck Series news, only a couple of bits here, and then we'll take a break, and we'll turn our attention to some open wheel and NHRA news. 4 teams have been nailed by NASCAR for infractions from both Darlington and Kansas, and I'm going to get your talk on this as well. It's related to window nets. This is not something we usually hear about when it comes to penalties, but the G2G racing teams of Brendan Poole and Dawson Cram, plus the Young's Motorsports teams of Spencer Boyd and Nick Lights, were each fined 25 points. All crew chiefs fined $5,000 respectively. Now, NASCAR rules state this, and I have to admit, I didn't realize that this was a rule. I'm not sure I have a problem with it. They state that, though, that window nets cannot be used in competition 2 years after their manufacture date. I get it. There is a safety factor that NASCAR certainly wants built into this.
Sure.
So here comes the question. With that, I would presume, being general knowledge in all shops amongst all divisions of NASCAR, from Cup all the way down to your local weekly series, how in the world did this get by? How in the world did we get to the point where these 4 trucks all got nailed for having window nets that were out of date?
Well, one is somebody not using their head, because all the window nets, they have it's called an SFI stamp.
Okay.
The SFI rating is from the safety rating that's used worldwide, universally, from dirt racing all the way up to Formula One. It's
Okay.
a SFI rating.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a fire suit I've got is an SFI 5.
Okay.
That is the highest rated flame retardant fire suit that you can get.
Okay.
All right. The helmet I have, my Bell helmet that I have, is an SFI 3.2/5. It's a different rating scale, but that's, from a helmet standpoint, that's top of the line.
Okay.
All right. Window nets have the same thing, because that material, if, say, for example, if a fire breaks out in the truck, all right, it's got to have the ability to withstand that fire to a certain point to be able to let said driver get safely out.
Right.
1. 2, it's got to withstand, let's just use the term, it's got to withstand a certain level of force from any debris that hits it to where it keeps it out from said driver.
Follow that.
And then from the 2-year rule, what I have from people I know that's within the safety aspect of it, from the 2-year rule, those materials but they can start losing their structure. Let's say losing their structure.
Yeah, that was my question. Is it because the safety factor degrades over time?
Yes, that
especially
is correct.
when dealing with all the severe elements that they deal with, because they're constantly being subjected to the outside weather forces. And
Exactly.
granted, we don't run in the rain, but, they have experienced wet, humidity, severe heat, severe cold, dry. They've experienced a little bit of everything there. I assume that they have a similar rule, if not almost the exact same rule when it comes to seat belts, but we can talk about that next. And we'll talk about the Triple Truck Challenge when we come back, and then we'll talk a little straight line racing here on CRN.
Don't touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network will be right back.
You on a
Tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
All right, let's spend a little bit more time here with this because we actually did get a question on this, Matt. I'm Steve West, producer John in studio, Matt from the Charlotte, North Carolina area, helping out family this weekend. But we were talking about the window net situation. I asked the question, safety harnesses the same way? Do they have the exact same time frame? Is it less? Is it more? What do you know?
The safety belts are made of, they're not the exact same material, but they're made of similar material.
Okay.
From the nylon webbing standpoint, let's use that term of it, because that gives the best depiction of what they're made out of for the ones that have not seen belts up close. But belts are typically, to my knowledge, belts are typically year to year, on a year-to-year replacement.
Okay.
You can let them go to 2 years, but after that 2-year period, they need to be replaced due to the fact of deterioration, wear, etc.
What about a helmet?
From if it's anything pertaining to the driver, whether it be from helmet, head sock, helmet sock, fireproof underwear, Nomex underwear, suit, gloves, that's a year-to-year thing.
Okay.
I think the only thing that is 2 years on a lenient period is the boots, shoes, whatever you wear. I think that's 2 years, but to my knowledge, everybody does their own personal safety equipment on a year-to-year basis.
Okay, makes sense. And again, this is the whole intent is to be as safe as possible. That's certainly what NASCAR wants to see, and that's what the drivers also want to kind of do as well.
Yeah, because all of the, and this I do know, all of the safety equipment from personal safety equipment, from helmet, like the ones I just said, everything all the way down top to bottom, even your Hans device that you use as well, has to be submitted for a safety inspection and be cleared, even though it's got that SFI rating stamp on there. That's from the safety factor from motorsports, that the universal scale that they use. Even though it's still on there, it still has to be submitted for safety inspection and be cleared for approval to use.
Okay. Helmets, as you said, are a little bit of a different situation. Obviously, if you get into a crash, that is something that they probably are going to look at as well. Assuming that you have a nice clean year, how often do you want to change a helmet?
Most people do it year to year, every year.
Okay. If you get into a wreck, how closely are they going to look at you and go, you know what, that helmet needs to be replaced immediately?
I think that is situational.
Okay.
Depending on the severity of the crash, depending on what type of impacts you had within the crash, things like that right there.
Okay. Again, safety the most important thing right now, and this is across. This isn't just NASCAR. This is NHRA. It's Indycar. It's Formula One. It's all the series we cover and all the series that we don't. Truth be told, they're all about the safety of it because they understand something here. You know, these are men and women who are highly talented people, and they're the reason we're tuning in. And you know, they don't want to have to, do the unfortunate news that Mike Helton had to do February the 18th of 2001, for example.
Oh. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Triple Truck Challenge is back, by the way, for 2023. It actually begins at Charlotte Motor Speedway, Worldwide Tech Raceway at Gateway, and then it'll wrap up at Nashville Super Speedway. Quick review of the whole thing. If a driver happens to win one of those 3 races, they get a $50,000 bonus to that day's winnings. Should you claim 2 out of 3, you get an extra $150,000. But if you can actually sweep all 3 races, that bonus jumps up to a $500,000. Only drivers running for points in the Truck Series are eligible for the Triple Truck Challenge, thankfully. And for the record, it's not technically that old. It only began back in 2019, but in the 4 years so far, no driver has claimed the $500,000 bonus yet.
Yep.
It'll happen. I get the funny feeling.
I got a couple of quick updates that just hit that
Sure.
I saw from Wilkesboro.
Okay.
For the Craftsman Truck Series, the 46 truck has withdrawn due to an accident and a fire they had in practice yesterday.
Not good.
And then the 6 truck, Norm Benning is attempting to qualify for this race. He had damage, but he did get it repaired and will get to attempt to qualify. And then Zane Smith failed pre-qualifying inspection 3 times, so he will not get to qualify. He will start shotgun.
And crew chief will either get fined and or kicked out?
I think the truck chief has already been kicked.
Is that what it is? Okay. And real quick, we mentioned this not that long ago when it came to Brett Holmes, the number 32 truck. What's the situation on their crew chief?
It's still really unknown what the actual medical issue that Jerry Baxter had last week.
Okay.
It hasn't been publicly released by the team or by Jerry himself. Looks like he's on medical rest for a little bit longer than what was expected to get whatever he's got going on, get it under control.
Okay.
So this week, Ryan Sparks, Corey LaJoie's Cup crew chief, will be overseeing the 32 truck for the race today. Actually qualifying, getting ready to roll off with about the next 5 minutes.
Okay. Not a bad fill-in crew chief right there.
Not at all.
To the National Hot Rod Association, where some in-season testing. It's kind of becoming rarer and rarer these days in pretty much all of the racing world, but when it happens, it becomes news. And Team Kalitta which seemed like the team to beat in preseason testing hasn't really done much when it came to actually getting into the season. So they decided to take all 3 of their teams to Lucas Oil Raceway Park in Indianapolis to try and figure it out. Reports had them mostly working on concentrating on getting off the light and testing setups as well, because I guess they figure, hey, if you can't get off the light, well, the rest of it really ain't going to matter. So we'll find out.
Nope.
Then there's the legend, Big Daddy Don Garlits. He is a legend in the NHRA world, and let's face it, most racers, avid racing fans, know his name. But how much of his story do you actually know would probably be a bigger question. Well, you're going to know about all of it here coming up very, very soon, because Garlits has begun work with a screenwriter on doing a screen play for a movie biopicture, which has the tentative title. This may not be the entirety of it. This may not be the final title. Let's put it that way. But right now it's under the working title of Don Garlits, The Story of an American Legend. The pic you see on CRN Live is courtesy of NHRA.com. The film about him has been talked about now. Think about this. A film about his life has been talked about now for over 40 years. Ever since he was a name that was noted in the film Heart Like a Wheel, a movie starring Bonnie Bedelia that was loosely based on the life of Shirley Cha-Cha Muldowney. Garlits, however, has had final say on any script. He said recently, quote, there have been about 10 scripts, unquote. Every one of them was lousy. Okay. So what to do? Well, he has decided to take the best of a bad lot and started to rework it himself. That script was worked up by Barbara McMichael and Jeff Lang, who Garlits said went to Florida in the mid-1980s. They interviewed his family, close and extended, and friends, and submitted it. The director was going to be John Frankenheimer, told him that the script, as he saw it, was too episodic and wouldn't make a good movie, and then turned around and gave Don Garlits himself the rights to that script. The movie will actually go back to his beginnings, 1932. There was a fire at the Garlits family farm that almost engulfed then baby Don, and then goes from that to his ride and to loving cars and to racing them and then to building the ones that he raced throughout his life. He claims to be about halfway done with what is planned to be about a 125-page script. He added that the producers wanted to see what he had, so he sent them 7 pages. Reported that they said what they said that they had read was, quote unquote, really good stuff. Again, this is the screenwriting aspect part of it. They haven't even gotten to the point where they're in pre-production, much less actually filming this. So my guess would be earliest we would see a Don Garlits film 2025. And again, that's the earliest, because there are a lot of aspects to be able to do this. If you want to do the racing right, there are a lot of aspects to this that they have to take the time to set up.
I could see that. I could see that for sure.
Let's see, what else are we going to get into here? How about some IndyCar information? A couple of more pictures coming your way here, and more information about Indy 500 pre-race ceremonies. We talked about this. This is, let's face it, it's the crown jewel of IndyCar. It's one of the crown jewel races all around the world. And because it's on Memorial Day as well, they do a lot of pre-race ceremony activities. And one of the things that's going to be on hand is that Grammy Award-winning singer-songwriter Jewel, who you will see on CRN Live here in just a couple of moments, courtesy of IndyCar.com, acclaimed not only for her singing but songwriting and acting, and a spokesperson for raising the awareness of the need for mental health. May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So getting Jewel to come in and perform the national anthem really wasn't all that big of a stretch. For over 2 decades, the singer's been working with her Inspiring Children Foundation to help bring mental health programs to at-risk youth and to the attention of corporations as well. She knows a little bit about this. She grew up in Alaska, and, well, she didn't have a whole lot, including no running water. She uses her own experience to help others attain their goals. Again, you can see that courtesy of IndyCar.com. As will be the next picture that you're going to see, and that will be the Grand Marshal for the famed race. Will be the host of a new Peacock streaming service show called Twisted Metal, Stephanie Beatriz. This is going to be a role that she will give the famed command to start engines, and she works, by the way, in the show with Anthony Mackie. This is a show somewhat loosely based upon the PlayStation game of the same name. It's set to debut on the streaming service July 27th, but she's better known for her stage work, but she has come around to the point where she's starting to get more film work. She did appear, I'm trying to remember, I think Guardians of the Galaxy and a couple of other movies not that long ago. But again, she kind of got her start in stage work. But yeah, she's about to give the command to start engines to to help out on Twisted Metal. I got to be honest with you. I'm a PlayStation fan. I've never played Twisted Metal. I don't even know what the heck it's about.
Neither have I. That makes two of us.
All right, then. So I may or may not check out this particular. Well, I don't have Peacock, so sorry, not checking out your show, Stephanie. This week began testing for the Indy 500. Day 1 got rained out. But on what was originally set to be day 2, the speeds were fast right off the bat. What effectively became day 1 of testing. These drivers have not set one tire on the Brickyard, and Takuma Sato puts a 228.439 mile per hour lap automatically. Scott Dixon was above 228 as well. 34 cars took part in turning laps, a low of 29 laps turned by R.C. Anderson, a high of 151 turned by Renus VK. Speeds ranged from Takuma Sato's 228.4 down to Callum Ilot's slowest speed of the day, 223.4. As a result of having that slowest speed, Juncos Hollinger Racing is switching out Ilot's chassis to the one that teammate Agustin Canapino used during last month's Indy Open test. Those who were trailing Ilot said that the young driver was about the bravest person on the track, noting his understeer or push, if you want to use NASCAR terminology, that his car had. So we'll see whether or not that does. We'll see whether or not that happens to work out for them. I hope it does. I'll be honest with you, because almost 229, 5 miles per hour difference. That in 2 laps, that's the length of the track is 5 miles long. I mean, that's pretty severe. You don't want to be doing that over a long period of time. You're going to get your butt kicked.
That you are. You got. That's about all you do is laugh at that.
Yeah. So hopefully this does work out for them. And I need to correct myself. Juncos Hollinger Racing. That brings us to yesterday as we go on the air. Friday, Fast Friday as they call it in there. This is the final day of official practice before this weekend's qualifying. The speeds were up 6 miles per hour. Takuma Sato still the fastest. He pulled down a 234.753 mile per hour lap about 50 minutes into the 3-hour session. Good night. These guys are going to be kicking. At some point in time, if they do what they had planned on, and remember, they haven't done it yet. At some point in time, they want to go from the 2.2-liter V6 that they have up to a 2.4-liter V6, keep the twin turbos, and they're saying that they estimate that'll make these cars put out about 1,000 horsepower, which rivals Formula One. At that point in time, we're starting to talk about the potential of a 240-mile-per-hour lap at Indianapolis. Ooh.
Did you see the official fastest trap speed yesterday going into turn 3?
Did not, no.
Pato O'Ward hit a 243.1 going into turn 3.
Yeesh. These guys are quick. Qualifying will air on NBC later today, 2:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 p.m. Central Time. We'll figure out who the Fast 9 are, and those 9 will go to NBC on Sunday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Central Time. They'll settle the first 3 rows for the Indy 500, and I want to say tomorrow officially becomes bump day as well. So they'll settle the Fast 9, and then all of a sudden it's everybody else who wants to go out. If you are outside of the 33 and want to get in, and if you're on the bubble and you want to try to improve your time, I think that'll happen after the Fast 9. I'm not 100% certain, but I think that's true.
Yeah.
Thursday, Cup Series 2021 champion Kyle Larson happened to be at Indianapolis. He was taken in the practice session on Thursday, but his mind probably was a little bit split. Obviously, he's got the All-Star race at North Wilkesboro this weekend. But he took the time, he met with media, said that he wanted to see what he was going to be getting himself into because he knows that next year he's going to be doing the double, the Indy 500, Coca-Cola 600 on the same day. He admitted he still has to undergo a proper seat fitting. He was given homework when he was at Arrow McLaren Racing earlier on this year when they did an initial seat fitting. They gave him notes, they gave him dash displays, they gave him several onboard videos to watch and go over. He added this, quote, "But I don't know when I'm testing yet. So I don't want to pick people's brains just yet. Then you have to go to them in a few months and ask the same questions over again." He knows what he's getting himself into. Like him or not, Kyle Larson is one of those guys. We've said this about some drivers, and I think, honestly, Kyle Larson's one. Jeff Gordon even said this. Kyle Larson's one of those guys you could probably put into pretty much any kind of race car, and he would pick up on it almost immediately and be fast almost right off the bat.
I would agree. I would agree wholeheartedly. He's got that same aspect that Tony Stewart does. You can get in anything and get to speed quick.
Yep.
He can do the same thing.
I agree. It's going to be fun to watch and see how well he does. The last time we saw it was Kurt Busch, 2014. Remember, Kurt Busch finished 6th in that Indy 500 and claimed the Indy 500 Rookie of the Year that year. We'll come back. We'll talk about contract situations for not just one, but 2 IndyCar drivers.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Wow, that got louder. Hey, Steve West, producer John Myers in studio. We also have Matt live from his, where are you at, the hotel room? Did we lose Matt?
We lost Matt.
We lost Matt. Well, we'll hopefully be able to get Matt back here fairly shortly. In the meantime, let's talk about the business of IndyCar as two drivers are in their contract years, and they're talking too. Sometimes this is a bad thing, sometimes it's a good thing. Personally, I think as long as you keep it professional, you're probably okay. The first one, Marcus Ericsson, he's your defending Indy 500 winner, says that he's awaiting an offer from current car owner Chip Ganassi. Made it clear he has been getting some interest from some other teams, though. Said on Wednesday before practice began, quote, I've noticed my phone being quite busy the last couple of months. I think Matt's coming back. And the team's being pretty interested in my future, so that's definitely a new thing for me. Yeah, it feels like people are taking notice, rating me as a driver, and that feels great. Well, probably should. I mean, 4 wins since 2021, an Indy 500 win. He's already got a win from earlier on this year. He's top 5 in points. He certainly has shown he's got the talent to win at this level, says that he's seeking a contract. This might be, what's the best way to put this? This might be the hurdle for him, because his current deal with Chip Ganassi Racing was dependent upon him having the sponsorship that he currently has, which is the is it Hulky or Husky? I forget which. The hot chocolate company from overseas in Europe. He wants a contract, and I'm talking about Marcus Ericsson. He wants a contract that does not require him to bring a sponsorship to the car. And that seems to be a little bit of a hurdle for Ganassi, who is seeking sponsorship and not necessarily willing to go out and find it himself. So here comes the situation that we're trying to figure out. How's this going to work? Is there another car owner who's willing to bring him on and then deal with the sponsorship situation as a separate deal? I would think that there's probably more than one team owner who'd be willing to do that. The other driver, and this driver seems like he'd be a natural to re-sign with his current team, is Graham Rahal. Graham Rahal's currently driving for his father's team, Rahal Letterman Lanigan. The 34-year-old driver, however, isn't so sure that it is a lock. He told reporters on Tuesday, quote, I think anything's on the table. He's running right now, though, on a 6-year winless streak. His father, Bobby Rahal, said that he knows that all the blame does not belong on his son's shoulder. Bobby said of Graham, quote, he's a hell of a race car driver, and then noted the uptick in performance this season. They've got 3 top 10 finishes, no top 5s, though, through Barber Motorsports Park. And then they turn around, they got a 4th place result at the Grand Prix of Indy with Christian Lundgaard. He was also the pole sitter, so he not only claimed the pole, he got his best finish of his career and the first top 5 finish for the team so far this year. Graham Rahal himself started the tail end of the field, ended up finishing that race in 10th. So they've got performance. Bobby noted that. Bobby also added this, quote, we didn't build that race shop just to play in racing. We built that building to give us an environment to excel. Our goal is to be one of the best teams out there on a consistent basis, and that's our commitment to the people within our team. And then he also noted that, let's face it, Graham's the next in line when it comes to the Rahal family, and he kind of wants to see Graham take over the team. So Absolutely. He doesn't want Graham to go anywhere. But at 34 years old, and I'll put you in the situation, Matt, as the driver. You are the resident driver of the show. You're 34 years old. You're running a 6-race winless streak. I get the fact that you're in a situation where you're driving for your dad's team, but when does it become to the point where you're like, you know what? I want to win. And I'm not seeing that as a possibility here.
Well, I want to throw this out there real quick with Craftsman Truck Series qualifying this on right now.
Sure.
Through 14 drivers, your current pole sitter that has out-qualified Kyle Larson and Christopher Bell and Chase Purdy
okay.
is none other than Brett Holmes.
Well, hello there. Go get it, Brett.
Him, Larson, and Bell are the only 3 drivers that are within the 20.2 second bracket.
Wow. All right. That's
Everybody
gonna be fun
else
to watch.
is 20.5 or lower. Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch indeed.
Yeah, and don't forget that race is later on today. So
yes, it goes off at 1:30 Eastern, 12:30 Central.
MRN Radio and Fox, the main network, just to let you know.
Yes.
All right,
Yep.
Back to the contract.
But in regards to Graham Rahal, you would be crazy to not get your son back in there and re-signing.
Okay.
Because he's the one that's going to be carrying your legacy on when you decide to hang it up and retire.
What's the temptation for you, though, as the driver to go, hey, I'm running this 34-race win streak, and let's just say that, yeah, you've seen an uptick in performance from one race, but from everything else that you've seen so far this year, what's your temptation to go, you know what, I just want to go find a place to go win?
That's your natural reaction as a driver.
Okay.
You want to win no matter where you're at. Okay. But at the same time, when you know what your team has got and you know the pieces are there,
Mm-hmm.
and all you need is just a little bit of luck. That's really anything, if you ask me. All you need is just a little bit of luck. I think you ride it out.
Okay.
If you ask me, I think you personally ride it out, let it get better, and just be patient.
So this kind of becomes one of those situations where really instead of saying, hey, you know what, I'm more than willing to go to another team, maybe it's just, hey, let's try and light a fire under everybody that's at the shop now, and let's see if we can't all work together and get what we've got even that much better.
I would agree with that. Yes.
All right, there you go.
Very fair statement.
To Formula One, where, as we noted before, the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix to be held at Imola, which was scheduled for this weekend, got canceled due to severe flooding in the region. Formula One sent their thoughts and prayers out to the people in the area that have been affected by it. And Ferrari has sent 1 million euros over there, and Formula One matched that 1 million euros going to the area's Agency for Territorial Safety and Civil Protection. I guess that'd be the equivalent of the Red Cross? I don't know, something like that.
Yeah, you could say that. You could say that.
Here's the thing. With the European leg of the season set to have begun at Imola, usually it's about this time that we start seeing teams planning big upgrades to their cars. Do they still implement them? Because here's the thing. The next race up is the Monaco Grand Prix. And we've talked about the situation when it comes to the Monaco Grand Prix. Yes, it's a highly prestigious race, but it's also one of those races there where the track is extremely narrow. There are few places that really are great for passing. So do you wait or do you go ahead and implement your upgrade? If it's me, I'm sorry. We've spent money, we've spent time, we've spent man hours, we've spent sweat equity in making these upgrades. I'm going to go ahead and put them on the car.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, get it done and get it over with.
Absolutely. Mercedes, Ferrari, and AlphaTauri have all come out publicly and said those updates will go ahead as planned. It seems likely, although unconfirmed at this time, that if the other teams are planning for upgrades, as to whether or not they will go ahead as planned, I guess we'll just have to wait and find out. Speaking of upgrades, Aston Martin said that they're almost ready to move into their brand new facility in Silverstone, England. But for now, they're kind of split in 3 different ways. They're working out of their old facility. They've got a couple of people that have begun to move into the new facility. And, oh, by the way, they're also working out of the Mercedes building, which houses the wind tunnel that they're using. Aston Martin's currently second in the Constructors' Cup behind Red Bull. They're hoping that getting into their new facility, which is planned to be completed by the end of June, is going to mean being able to settle down and make communications between the different departments that much smoother and bring a major benefit to the team. Does that major benefit mean that they think that they actually have a chance at closing the gap between what is right now them and the first place team of Red Bull? I mean, you and I have pretty much already called it. You and I have already said Red Bull's the Constructor Cup winner. Does Aston Martin is, let me put it another way, is having everybody under the same roof and comfortable in their new surroundings enough of a boost that they could begin to close that gap on Red Bull?
If they think it's going to close a gap, they better get it done in a hurry. Because Red Bull is, how do I word this? Red Bull is pulling away and laughing while they're pulling away.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
If you want to get the gap closed, you better pick the pace up.
And you better do it quick.
In a hurry.
Yeah.
In a royal hurry.
Yeah, I agree.
Because they Red Bull's in a league of their own. There's no other way to say it.
Amen to that. Aston Martin said that they're also, Aston Martin also said that they're also building their own wind tunnel in their new facility, but that isn't going to be ready for use until 2025, and until then they got to work with Mercedes to continue to use theirs. And they note the limitations on that. Aston Martin's performance director, Tom McCullough, said earlier this week, quote, "It's definitely better to have it on site. Having your own wind tunnel means that within the regulations, you can pretty much use it whenever you want it, as opposed to having to schedule it and work around Mercedes. And I would presume Williams, considering that Williams uses Mercedes engines."
Yeah, they do use, let's see, it's Mercedes, Aston Martin, Williams, and even though we know McLaren uses
Also true,
Mercedes
yeah.
engines, they've got their own deal.
Yeah, they've got their own wind tunnel.
Yeah, so
We'll see. We shall see.
Yeah, that's all you can say is we'll see.
Could a couple of new tracks be coming to Formula One? Well, Hungarian officials may be in a situation where they're going to have to choose which one they would like to hold the annual Hungarian Grand Prix at sooner rather than later. Currently, it's held at the Hungaroring course. That's the one just east of the capital city of Budapest. But there's another choice that just finished construction. It's named Balaton Park. The overhead look at the track you can see right now on CRN Live on YouTube, courtesy of blogspot.com. It's not a bad-looking track, by the way. It's an estimated $200 million cost. That's American dollars. Euros, it's a little bit more, actually. The course, which reportedly took some 4 years to build, is an FIA Grade 1 ready facility near Lake Balaton, which is about 50 miles from Budapest, the capital. It's a 2.557-mile-long course. It's been checked out by ex-F1 driver Giancarlo Fisichella, who said this, quote, "The track really has it all. Thrilling bend of high-speed corners, challenging hairpins, cool chicanes. It's a track that flows nicely, gives you some great racing feeling. The first corner and the end of the back straight, prime spot for overtakes." It does seem to have a lot of those particular areas. Obviously, you can't really tell how wide this is from that particular shot, but I would say that, yeah, especially as you come off of that last corner, which reminds me a little bit, truth be told, of what we see at Barber Motorsports Park. You got that sweeping right-hand curve and then a quick left. Then you go down that front straight. That reminds me a lot of Barber. It's going to be interesting to see how well this happens to be. And do they, because to me, the Hungaroring course is also a valid course. Do you then start splitting between these two courses? And one year you go to one, the next year you go to the other one?
Or just, considering what's been happening in the last few years, just dump China's race altogether, and then give the country of Hungary 2 events.
Ooh.
Put that track in the place of China, and stay at the Hungaroring.
Okay.
Just like they run Italy umpteen times a year, what it seems.
Yeah, really. Well, they might just do that. We'll have to see.
Worth a shot.
The course currently has permanent seating for only 10,000 people, but officials claim they can easily host over $100,000 with temporary grandstands and such. It's eligible for a Grade 1 license necessary for hosting Formula One, but right now they're only asking for Grade 2 status. It would allow for some other top-level FIA and car and motorcycle racing to run there and at least work it in, and then later on you apply for Grade 1 status. Another track capable of hosting Formula One is in Finland. It's the home of current driver Valtteri Bottas and, of course, the retired Iceman, Kimi Räikkönen. The track, named Kimi Ring, not after Kimi Räikkönen, was drawn up and dirt turned over on it back in 2007. Well, by 2019, it was ready to host top-level FIA-sanctioned events, but the scheduled races for 2020 and 2021 were called off because of the pandemic, and then the Russia-Ukraine conflict with Finland's interest in joining NATO because of all of that caused another delay. You have an overhead look of that facility on CRN Live on YouTube, courtesy of motorracers.com. This is an even farther away shot. That does seem like a pretty cool track. You want to talk about one long straightaway. I think that would be the back straightaway as I'm looking at it, though. Bottas wants to assist this course, saying that the delays caused the track going to administration. That's kind of a European form of bankruptcy, by the way. Bottas talked to motorsport.com, said he's held initial talks with track officials about trying to get things moving again and what it might take to ensure Grade 1 specifications. The track is said to owe creditors about 25 million euros. Ouch. Much of that related to the delayed MotoGP races that had been planned there for the last 3 years. The last time Finland held a top-level FIA-sanctioned race was 1982. That was a motorcycles race. Finland has never been able and has not to this point hosted Formula One. And I think Button would like to change that. But then again, pretty much every country on the planet seems to want to host that particular series. So I guess we'll find out. McLaren Racing, hoping for a change in the cost cap instituted by Formula One a couple of years ago, said they're having a hard time choosing between performance and sustainability, both of which are covered under the current rules. McLaren released figures, said that they have a 22% drop in greenhouse gas emissions from their facilities since 2019. Total waste is down 19%, but the problem is all the costs are counted under the same budgetary rules set forth by the series, so they're leading a charge to have the rules amended to allow the teams to separate the costs of sustainability out. McLaren officials said, quote, "We strongly believe in the cost cap, wouldn't want to see anything that undermines its integrity, but current regulations have created some unintended barriers when it comes to investing in sustainability." Formula One has not yet commented on McLaren's request. I'm not anticipating a comment anytime too soon. And the all-electric Formula E Series has a leadership change that's effective this week. Formula E said that CEO Jamie Regal, who's been in that position the last 4 years, stepped down effective on Wednesday of this week, but he's set to remain with the series as an advisor through the remainder of the year, helping the new CEO, Jeff Dodds, come in. He'll take on the role June 5th officially. He comes over from Virgin Media O2. He's also worked as an executive with Callaway Golf and Honda. We'll have to see whether or not he can continue the upward trend of Formula E. Matt, enjoy the racing weekend. I know that you're close. You'd love to be closer to North Wilkesboro, but hey, we got to do what we got to do. Good luck with helping the family, and hopefully everything moves swiftly and safely.
Yeah, hopefully so. We're about to get busy here real shortly.
Yeah, we are, and we'll talk more about how we're going to get busy here on this show here in the next couple of weeks as well. With Matt on his way to go help pack, on behalf of producer John and myself, Steve West, y'all have a great week. Enjoy the racing weekend, and we'll talk to you next week right here on CRN.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.
WDNG 1450 AM
and W236 CQ 95.1 FM Anniston.
95.1 The